you look at that, they just delayed our flight.
I have a business meeting to be in 6 hours. Hope I make it there on time.
Oh, I hope you do too. What profession are you in?
I'm an operations manager at Lockheed Martin.
Is that right? Because that's the field of operations management that I'm trying to break into.
Oh, really? We're actually looking to hire some help in that position. Please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a first-year MBA student at Virginia Tech and doing a triple concentration in general management, organizational management, and marketing so I can speak the language of business more fluently. I really love logistics, so I'm looking to eventually become an operations manager such as yourself. And I've worked for over 2 years at a small advertising agency, and I saw on a small scale what I'd like to do for a larger company. And I'd like to coordinate many projects concurrently, and it always gives me a great sense of satisfaction when a job is completed successfully. And I always work great under pressure and keep my priorities organized, which is what any organizational manager should do.
So why'd you quit your job to do grad school?
Well, I liked the job itself, but I didn't really have any room for advancement in such a small company, and the corporate culture was really quite negative. I also realized I was more interested in the management than the marketing side of business, and I wanted to learn more about it. And so I decided to get a degree from a quality MBA program as an investment in my future.
So what classes are you taking at Virginia Tech that are relevant?
Well, I've taken a class on organizational behavior, and I'm very excited and intrigued by the operations management course I'm taking in the spring. I've taken a few marketing and finance courses which are helping me get a better understanding of the other aspects of business.
You say you love logistics, and this is very important, being a successful operations manager. What do you love so much?
Well, working for advertising agencies gives me great experience in the number of details it takes to complete even the most basic project, and I get a great sense of satisfaction in guiding the project every step of the way from inception to completion, and that sense of satisfaction is definitely something I want to have in my career.
Do you have any experience in the field?
Well, yeah, I worked for the 2.5 years as a production assistant at the small advertising agency in Washington, D.C., and I thought I was going to get a chance to use my marketing degree, but instead wound up doing more management work and liking that management and production side better than the marketing side anyway, and the production side keeps me fully engaged and invested.
And what did your previous job entail?
Well, I was involved in most of the jobs on the production side, such as meeting with clients to determine their objectives, pricing their proposals, making sure that projects were running smoothly so that no deadlines were missed and that the client was satisfied at all times.
That sounds great, but what role did you have in guiding projects to completion?
Well, I knew that consulting with the project is the most important aspect, because if I didn't deliver exactly what they wanted, the project would not be considered a success. But after a detailed conversation with the client, I would have to write up a proposal with the competitive pricing.
And when did you have a project that had issues arise and you fixed them?
Oh, we have one project where the client was extremely specific when they needed a good amount of signs produced and installed by a certain date for the new building they're opening, and most of these signs were brass or bronze, which is not something we had any experience making or installing, and so we had to find new vendors, and the final product was not quite what the client wanted, so we had to meet with the client and figure out what was wrong, and then have an in-person meeting with the vendor to explain what was wrong and how it could be fixed and avoided in the future. The second production was acceptable but had to be rushed through the design and production stages, and I was the one making sure that it was not falling behind, which was especially difficult when one of the graphic designers was on vacation, but it was completed successfully on time.
Who does the work if you don't, and how do you know if they're going to do it correctly?
Well, usually, at least in the past, we had graphic designers do the actual design of projects, and the communication and trust with the coworkers is key, because then I have to convey the information to the employees who will actually work on the project, and a one-on-one meeting is almost always required to make sure all the details are sufficiently explained and questions are answered. And if I don't work well with others or trust them, then these meetings would not be productive.
Going back to pricing, how do you make sure that the prices you give are competitive but also profitable?
Well, negotiating with vendors is a skill I had to learn that I had no previous experience with. Vendors have a price for the public, and then they seem to have a separate price for repeat customers, and then often a lower price if they're negotiated with, or price matching comes into play. The negotiation is a fun aspect of the job, and I enjoy doing it on small ones, and I'd like to try doing it on larger projects. I found that it's best to have a preferred vendor or two, and then some others that we can use for price matching purposes, or in case a quick deadline can't be met by one of the preferred vendors.
What happens if there's a vendor problem and they can't deliver what they say?
Well, logistically, nothing ever does go exactly as planned, and I do realize that, and so when the vendor can't deliver by a rigid deadline that has already been agreed upon, there's situations where an employee has to go to the vendor and pick something up when we can't wait for it to be overnighted, or otherwise we have to get back on the phone and call other vendors and try to leverage them into doing the project by saying that if they complete the project in a rush, we might use them as our preferred vendor in the future. And I've had to do this with at least a few sets of business cards, outdoor vinyl banners for event, and many other different projects.
With regard to deadlines, how do you make sure nothing slips through the cracks?
Well, with multiple deadlines, organization is the key requirement. I find that the online systems such as Basecamp help tremendously with keeping a calendar. They keep all the relevant documents to a project online, so everything's in one place and automatic reminders are sent. Keeping file names and a consistent naming system allows for any employee to access the proper files even if they haven't worked on the project yet. And I also like to have physical file folders. They're helpful in supplementing the online presence. At the advertising agency, I helped usher in the implementation of an online job organization system for use by all employees and training them to make sure that it was used properly and efficiently. And when I was organizing a charity golf tournament, I always made sure that I had the big picture items on a timetable with some leeway in case issues arose. The details are also important, but usually take less time to complete, and they don't work without the big picture items in place first. And a successful operations manager must know the status of every project under their purview to manage it successfully, and that is something that I've learned through my experiences at the advertising agency.
How do you handle the pressure of so many projects being thrown at you all at once?
Well, part of the reason is I try to make my decisions logically and not emotionally, which certainly helps. And I also keep everything organized so that I have as few surprises as possible, and make sure that I delegate any jobs that I can't handle personally. And trusting your coworkers is vital in these situations. For if they have an issue for me to handle, I try to put myself in the coworker's shoes to find the best solution. And I also try to be flexible, because having anything set in stone logistically is a dangerous situation if any obstacles arise. So always having a backup plan resolves many last-minute problems.
How about leadership? Every successful operations manager has leadership traits. What are yours?
Well, in a retail setting, I've helped train many workers in all the aspects of their jobs and responsibilities, and more recently at the advertising agency, I trained my successor in how to do all parts of my job before I departed. Since there was a multitude of tasks, this took about a week of training, and then also at special events that we coordinated. I was the main contact and trainer for all the temporary workers. There was one instance where I had to explain the task, get all of the workers the proper equipment, and get them to their locations within 15 minutes, and then having to coordinate between all of them during the event.
Well, that sounds impressive. Let me get your contact information and a resume if you happen to have one on you, so I can take a closer look.
Okay, well, thanks so much. Have a great trip.
You too.